Welcome to the Annie Jennings PR Real Stories of Success podcast series. Annie Jennings is the creator of the most powerful radio campaign in the country, where you are booked on high-impact shows in top markets, as well as a famous pay-for-placement national television, print, and online media program where she offers guaranteed deliverables. My name is Stacey Amaral Kaufman. I'm the radio director for Annie Jennings PR, and we are sharing another real story of success to give listeners an inside look into what it's like to work with Annie Jennings. And today we're talking with Dr. Steve Ruskin. He's a historian of astronomy and author of the book, America's First Great Eclipse, How Scientists, Tourists, and the Rocky Mountain Eclipse of 1878 Changed Astronomy Forever. Annie's team of publicists placed Dr. Ruskin with USA Today, Newsweek, CNET, Slate.com, CBS, and Fox Television, not to mention a major national radio campaign. He signed on for 18 interviews and was heard on over 650 stations. This includes big media brands like NPR, CBS Radio, Fox News Radio, iHeartMedia, Westwood One, and nationally, as well as in major markets like San Diego, Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Boston, Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, and many, many more. So welcome, Dr. Ruskin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stacey.
It's our pleasure. Why don't you talk to our listeners a little bit about kind of the beginning, why you decided to work with Annie and what feeling that you got when talking with her on the phone?
Well, sure, yeah. When I had this book that came out about an eclipse that occurred in 1878, I wrote it to time with the 2017 eclipse, which, of course, anyone who was around during the past few months of the summer of 2017 realized that that's almost, other than politics, it's pretty much what everyone was talking about. And so I knew that a book about a past eclipse that occurred in America would be interesting. It was just a matter of getting the message out. And having worked in marketing before in the technology space, I knew the value of a publicist, but I had never, even though I've been published before, I've never really worked with a publicist for previous books or anything else I'd done. So I knew that I needed to do something, and so I just did some research online and came across Annie Jennings and a number of others and dug deep and even listened to some of Annie Jennings' podcasts like I'm doing now, and thought that she really seemed to be on top of on top of the book publicity, because I know that was one of her specialties, or the company's specialties, and so it made me want to give her a call and chat about what I needed, what my objectives were, and that was great. I think she really got me right away.
And when you spoke with her, Steve, how did you feel with her on the phone? You said you dug deep with several different PR firms. What was it about Annie that made you say yes, like the clincher?
I think it was her professionalism. I've worked not only yes, I'm an author and I'm an academic, and I probably feel more comfortable in a tweed jacket, but I've also worked in the technology space, and I've also worked in the real estate space, and I understand what it takes to be a professional. I've worked with CEOs that are worth millions and millions on their own, so I know I've seen professionalism at all levels. And Annie gave me that sense right away that she was someone not only focused and knew her market, knew what needed to get done in her space, but was passionate about it too. Her energy was very impressive, and that's what I needed, because I was feeling a little lost. And I felt like, not only did she get me, like I said, but that she was going to be able to sort of figure out what I thought I needed and translate that into how that would work in the PR world. And so it was a good feeling. I just felt like she was a real professional.
And so when you signed on, what were your expectations? What was it that you expected to receive in terms of the media placements? And do you think that what you did receive kind of exceeded those expectations?
It's funny, because I didn't know what to expect, and yet I had expectations. I just didn't know if they were reasonable. But at first I signed on for the radio campaign, and like you said, it was the 18-spot radio campaign, and I think it ended up being quite a bit more than that, because there were a few that came along that you guys were generous and added on, because we had already done the full campaign, so that was very nice. And about halfway through the radio campaign, I realized that the pay for placement, the radio campaign was doing well, and I thought the pay for placement, especially print advertising, or not advertising, but print placement would really help my goals as well. So I signed on for that with a budget, which again Annie not only worked within but exceeded, because there were a few things that she added on, just in addition to what I had already agreed to. So that was also very nice. And so it's funny because I think from a strictly ROI point of view, the pay for placement I would probably say was more valuable, but the radio campaign was a blast. And I've done public speaking before. I've not only lectured in front of college students and that sort of thing, as a professor, given public lectures, but I've also done a little bit of TV and a small amount of radio and podcasts in the past when I was working in the tech industry, but never quite to the degree that I did with this campaign for the book. And because my book was on a relevant topic, there was obviously a lot of interest. I loved doing the radio campaign, and it really the sort of soft advantage, that's something that you don't see an immediate return on investment, is that I had a lot more confidence in practicing sort of elevator pitches and knowing my material a lot more, which as the campaign went along really made me stronger, and I think impressed more and more of the folks I was speaking to, and like you said, the reporters from USA Today and Newsweek and that sort of thing. So in other words, the radio campaign, not only was it fun to do, but it gave me a lot of confidence as a speaker, and so I feel really good about the whole package.
And did you think that you would receive so much added value? You were just talking about the investment was actually going to be my next question. But since you answered that already, Steve, since you're so good at it now, overall,
I hope. I try.
So good, right? So such a great interviewee and guest at this point. What did you feel about that added value and everything else that was kind of piled on as we, like you said, worked within your budget, and then things just kept on happening for you?
Yeah, well, it was neat, and that was, I think, very generous of Annie, which I didn't expect. We had a set budget. The radio campaign was fixed, and we knew what that amount was. And then as things went along, more shows wanted to talk to me. As the eclipse group, the 2017 eclipse, was getting closer and closer, and everyone wanted to know about it. So you guys said, hey, we know we've sort of met our requirements on this campaign, but there's more people that want to talk to you, and you didn't give me any grief. You just said we're going to book these, and that was awesome. Same thing with the print campaign, which of course you're paying per placement, per issue, say per USA Today story or Newsweek story, and I said I would love to have as many as I could, but here's my budget, and you said fine, we'll do that. But the same thing happened. I mean, once we sort of met that budget, the press was still kind of banging on your door, which I think attests, how good you guys did pitching me. But you didn't turn them away just because we had sort of reached my budget. We made a few compromises and whatever, or we agreed on a few things differently, and I did up my budget a little bit. But even then, I think you guys went well beyond what I would have paid list price, just because you knew that I was doing well and you seemed more interested in my ultimate success rather than sort of, I don't know, trying to squeeze me or something, which I never felt you were doing anyway. But, you said this is for you, and, you're doing great, and we're going to help keep promoting you. And it was pretty amazing. So I think I definitely got more value than I definitely had a high ROI from you guys. And I really, on top of it, like I said, I feel like my confidence and ability to speak quickly to questions, maybe not right now because this one's dragging on, but I really feel like we're talking to radio interviewers and stuff. I was really getting down what they needed and giving them what they needed, and I think that's probably what brought more and more on.
Well, absolutely. And, part of what we do at Annie is we try to prepare you as much as possible to be the best guest that you can be, understanding what the media is looking for, and included in everything that we do, no extra fees for this whatsoever, is media training. And you did that through radio, also through Skype for a couple of television placements that we secured for you. So how do you feel about the media training and how that prepared you for this onslaught of media?
Oh, it was great. Like I said, I've done a lot of public speaking before, and even some radio and TV, although that had been a long time prior to this campaign, so I hadn't done much. But I'm not one who's ever been really shy about that. So I didn't need coaxing out of my shell, but what I did need was, sort of inside industry expertise that you had and gave me, because, I never thought about timing my responses. right? And again, I'm not doing a good job of it on this podcast, but that's because I'm sort of gushing because I think you guys are great. But I could go on forever and ever about my subject, but you all reminded me that these reporters have limited time, so to keep your answers brief, and punchy, unless they ask for something longer. But so there were a lot of things that I just hadn't thought of that made perfect sense because radio was sort of new to me, and knowing how to handle those questions was just something that that's where your expertise came in that I needed. Same thing with TV, and then print's a little different because you have a little more flexibility in terms of time with the reporters. But I really felt like the training did a great job of making me think about how to frame my responses, how long to make them, and how to make them interesting, timely and topical, so that the reporters got what they needed and didn't feel like I was just wasting their time.
And what would you say it was like kind of working day to day with Annie's team, whether it was, through the radio division and, working with Jason and myself? What was it like to work with everyone there at Annie's?
Well, I mean, you were extremely responsive. I mean, I don't think we ever had to play phone tag more than once, and even after hours, because we're in different time zones when I know it was a lot later. For you all, you got back to me quite quickly, whether it was, text or email or a call. So I never felt like, there was like I was being left out, on my own. And even if something was going wrong, you were right on top of it and giving me a call and saying, hey, we need to reschedule this or do that or whatever. So I just felt that you guys were extremely responsive, very professional.
Well, thank you. And like you said earlier, you were doing a great job on the interviews, that's for sure. So we love that. We love to watch you grow as an expert, as a media guest in all forms. So it was our pleasure and honor to be working with you as well. And finally, Steve, what would you say to someone who is thinking, who's contemplating signing on with Annie Jennings?
Annie and you, Stacy, and Jason, and whoever else I haven't spoke with that's on the team, have all done an amazing job. You're very professional, and it's an investment for sure. This sort of PR isn't it's not pennies, but I knew what I knew. I knew what my budget was, and I didn't feel like I was overextending myself. And for that reason, but I still wanted to maximize what I was doing. I've worked in big industries and small ones, and I know that PR is a cost of doing business. So I was prepared for that, but what I wasn't prepared for was how great you guys were and how much added value I would actually end up with. So I think for those who are considering Annie or someone else, I guess I'm just really pleased I went with you. I got more than I feel that I paid for, much more actually, both in sort of an ROI perspective, a hard fixed cost, as well as sort of something that I didn't expect, which was the practice and confidence in pitching my expertise to a different sort of market, media than I've done before. And so that was really great. And so bottom line, I think the investment was absolutely worth it. And you were all just very professional and made, you had my best interests at heart during this campaign. And I don't think I could have been quite as successful as I was without you. I definitely couldn't have been. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Awesome. And our listeners, of course, can learn much more about Dr. Steve Ruskin, again, historian of astronomy, author of the book America's First Great Eclipse, on his website, which is firstgreateclipse.com. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Stacy.
And this podcast is presented by Annie Jennings of the national publicity firm Annie Jennings PR. For more information on how you too can experience national media success and guaranteed deliverables, please visit AnnieJenningsPR.com.